am Matt Wilhelmi, and I'm the owner of Strategic Voyages Business Consultants. I'm also the author of Taboo Business Questions, What's Haunting Every Entrepreneur's Growth. And today I'm joined by Sharie Flores, owner of MT Strategies, providing HR leadership and talent services to SMBs. She focuses on the professional services and technology industries, specifically with companies that have somewhere between 8 and 75 employees. It's kind of her sweet spot. And so Sharie, you and I were talking about this case study, and in this particular episode, we're going to get right into the solutions after I kind of remind people where we're at. So we were talking about this financial services firm in New York. They have about 12 employees. They would hire a couple, a few would leave. They'd hire a couple, a few would leave. They were in the operations department, specifically underwriters. And, you in our first episode were really eloquent and accurate in asking some really pointed, direct questions about how you kind of uncover some of the root causes here, which is really, really important. In our second episode, we went through a couple of cautionary tales. What happens if people don't fix this problem? And now we finally get to pay off the teeth here. I'm really excited to go through some solutions with you. So Sharie, could you say hello, and then we'll jump into your process here.
Hi. Oh, glad to, happy to jump into these issues. Really excited.
Yeah. So, you've been really great in kind of helping me unpack this case study a little bit. Now we get to talk about the solution. And so this is where, for our viewers who are maybe familiar with this format, Sharie's the expert here. She's seen this a million times. She's been through these kinds of situations. She knows how to handle it. And so, you've asked some really great questions. So Sharie, I'll let you take it away. How would you kind of present a process for solving their issues?
Sure thing. So there are two major things that I think we would look at here. And that's if we're planning to double, triple, quadruple the size of one's company, I would go ahead and start looking at a trainer. And it's going to be a little bit of an investment up front, but I would bet my wonderful, dutiful car that if you took a test group of folks who didn't have a trainer and someone to really help them move them along versus ones who did, you would see a huge difference in success. So I would look at a trainer, and this person would be in charge of the learning management system, making sure there are blended learning opportunities. Everyone learns a little bit differently, and really making sure that what the training leads to the results that we're looking for. And that's for people to be successful in their roles and stay beyond the 90 days. We know we lose about 30% of our new hires in that 90 days. And we want to make sure that all the time and money that we invested in their time and the money that they've invested, it goes to good work. And the second one I would look at is I would go ahead and take 8, 16, 24 business hours there at the front to create a hiring guide. And this is for everybody. So this is for if one of your recruiters couldn't do the work anymore or had to move on, we could hand this guide over to the next person. And it would say, this is what we offer to our employees. These are our core values. This is what we're trying to do. The best personalities who work here are. And usually for a small company, you're looking for like an entrepreneurial spirit. So someone who gets excited at unknown challenges. And also looking for certain personalities and certain types. And we're not looking to violate anybody's privacy or anything like that. But for an accountant, you need someone who's really focused and detail oriented. And for sales, you may not need that as much. So that's what we're really looking for, is a difference in those types of things.
So you brought up some really interesting solutions. I hadn't even thought about, having kind of a corporate trainer installed in this business, and that could be full-time. Maybe it's contract work. That's maybe more specifics for the company to figure out. But what would be kind of the process for finding the right corporate trainer? Is there a resource for that, or do you find somebody internally to kind of like teach them how to be a corporate trainer? What is the background for this person?
Yeah, I love that question because I think people would be surprised at how often people internally would really love to do something like that. Like, sure, I want to come out of delivery or project management, and I want to teach the next generation of folks here to be better and maybe avoid some of the mistakes that I made. And so I would look internally first. And then if they need some help making some programs or training development plans, things like that, they would work with an HR person. Or there are plenty of organizations and people who do just that as a profession. So really looking at maybe the money that we want to spend there, or what we might see in our best investment. But ask internally. There are lots of people who would love that opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet there's a lot more than just financial benefits there. You're going to build a strong culture. You'll probably have an employee a lot more emboldened and enabled to help kind of continue to invest in the business and think about it maybe as their own baby. They're kind of developing this process from scratch potentially. And so they'd have a lot of buy-in to that whole process. I could just see so many benefits there of kind of coaching that person up and giving that internal person opportunity.
One of my current clients, we have someone like that. He's good at what he does. But whenever we give him opportunities to train our new people coming in, I mean, he just lights up. It's like he was born to do it or something. So giving people those types of opportunities and seeing them really succeed is very rewarding as a manager.
So the other solution that you kind of recommended or brought up was a hiring guide. And I think of a hiring guide, I haven't created one, so I'm going to rely on you here, but I think of a hiring guide as almost like a playbook. It's like okay, it's maybe not super duper detailed. I mean, maybe it is, but it's not to the point where it's like, okay, on day one, you say this sentence. And then on day two, like it might not be like that. I mean, it could be, but I think more of like an overall kind of strategy would maybe be the way to start it. Here are company pillars. Here's our vision. Here's our mission. Here's where we're headed kind of thing. And then maybe more, detailed in terms of, here's what we're looking for in the hiring process. Here's how, it would maybe articulate the phases. But I'm curious kind of if I'm even on the right track. And if not, what are the elements that are included in the hiring guide?
Yeah, excellent question. So yeah, it is more like a guide. I wouldn't say that initially, we can kind of keep it simple. Essentially, we want to take whatever leadership is thinking, whatever they're working towards, and we want to bring it into this hiring guide so that when we go out and we look for new people to join our company, we can communicate to our candidates exactly what we're looking for and making sure that they can make an educated decision on like, okay, this does sound like the type of culture I want to join. I love focused people who go at a fast pace, or I don't, I like to have a little more creativity, a little more freedom to do what I do best. So, spend some hours doing that, look at certain personality types that you're looking for, and maybe even note where the best place to find these folks are. Is it going to be through employee referrals? Is it going to be through Indeed and LinkedIn and proper sourcing? Is it going to be a very specialized position? Do we need to hire a specialized recruiter for it? So a little bit of planning, I promise, will save a lot of time up front, in the back end.
Well, that's usually the rule of thumb. I think a lot of people want to skip over the planning step, just right into the action step. But if you can take that time, to do a little bit of planning, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache down the road. So Sharie, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk through your process in a little bit more detail. So if you were working with this company, or really any company for that matter, what would an engagement look like for you? Do you structure it in phases? Do you have like a flat fee for certain things, or is it more of like an hourly rate? And we don't get into all the specifics, but is it like an engagement where people have to sign up for, a multiple year engagement on the front end, or kind of how do you position yourself to really give maximum value, but also to say something along the lines of, hey, like this value isn't free, but here's kind of the way that it fits into a corporate structure?
Yeah, sure thing. For something like this, I mean, it's going to be a multiple month project, at least. And in your case, it ended up being several years, it sounds like. So this is something where I would look to really join the leadership team and want to work with them, and making sure that I'm working with managers to not only come up with a really good plan and respect the money coming in versus going out, but making sure that the people that we're hiring and bringing in and training are bringing in the results that we would expect, and that those people have a calm atmosphere and a process they can follow. So this is something a little bit more hands-on. I don't think it would be a consulting thing. I think it'd be a couple of month engagement.
Yeah, and I think that's important to clarify in the front end, because I do think, and again, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would bet that there are issues out there where you're like, oh, that's easy. That's a few hour project, asked and answered kind of thing. But more of these companies that are trying to grow and build something, that does take a little bit more of an ongoing effort to try and solve. Am I thinking about that the right way?
Yeah, sure. Only if you would want to be successful in something like that, that has like kind of a long-term start, beginning, beginning, middle, and end. Because we could do the beginning, we could do the middle, but at the end, is the end result, does that ultimately work? Do we get those folks who stay here, or do we lose them? So, which is my personal style, is to be hands-on and really see that through all the way.
Yeah, I like one of the terms you used, which was you'd want to partner with the leadership team. And I think about my approach in a similar light, because when I'm working with business leaders on the finance side of things, there are a lot of similarities in what they're talking about and what they're dealing with and what they're headed towards. So I understand it pretty quickly from a surface level, understanding, but then crafting this specific solution and the strategy for those businesses, it does take customization, it does take collaboration, and it takes, kind of time getting to this point of having a comprehensive strategy that's really going to be something that everybody's bought into. It's not just an email. I sent you an email and you should be able to figure it out from here. It kind of takes some coaching, even of the leadership team, to get them kind of bought into the terminology and to have them kind of really embrace some of those milestones within the process. So one of the last questions I wanted to bring up here, Sharie, is more related to your approach. When you're working with a client, do you set kind of milestones for either deliverables or things that they can expect along the way? Like, how are you kind of able to forecast what that engagement would look like?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, because I think there's so many different ways to do this. So in one of my engagements, I had to take on the role of a project manager. So I started approaching my engagements like project management. So there's a beginning, middle, and end. And I also send out weekly reports, just kind of like a report card with some visuals, and just like, this is what we were expecting to do. This is what we actually did. Because I don't want people to ever wonder, hey, what do we pay that person to do? And that is the wrong question. If we're getting to that question, something went wrong. So yeah, thank you for asking that. It's really important. And for a lot of fractional leaders out there who are really trying to figure out that question and making sure that their clients know they provide value, I recommend something like that. It doesn't have to be weekly, maybe monthly, but just something visual, especially for our visionary types who need colors on paper. Go ahead and do that. So I would recommend.
Yeah. I think that's really rich, because, so many times you might be working in the background and working very hard and very diligently, but it's not as front and top of mind that maybe business leaders see. And so then, they get a bill and they're like, well, what the heck is this? And, it's just important to kind of have that check-in to make sure that they see the value and they understand that we're on the track. This is the process we agreed to. We're delivering the things we said we would do. This is the time that we said we would take. It's all working as planned. So thanks for kind of bringing some light to that.
Yeah. Can I ask what your approach is? What have you found works best?
Yeah, it's similar. I definitely start with in all of my engagements, I have a diagnostic tool that I use. It's called an SV analysis. It's very originally branded SV Strategic Voyages. Didn't take a lot of brain power there, but it's a diagnostic tool that I created over several years that hits on about 7 different major pain points within businesses. And this tool, if business leaders do fill it out completely and do kind of give some time to it, could probably get it done in less than half an hour. It's not meant to be this over the top, 17-hour, 35 question process. It's like so over the top, where I've seen some of the organizational health assessment tools out there just be so hard to get through. My approach is much more simple. I know what 7 issues business owners typically deal with. I actually wrote about them in my book, but my diagnostic tool gets right to the bottom of their root issues. And so from there, I'm able to kind of craft a strategy. We're able to prioritize kind of issue A, issue B, issue C. Here's what they can expect. Here's the approach that we are going to take. Here are the different parties that are going to need to be involved. And really, I craft that whole strategy with the business leaders that are already in the business to just enhance the effectiveness and reduce the adoption rate in that change management or in the strategic plan that we're trying to implement. So I appreciate you asking. It's something that I've gone through and done a number of times now. And the other thing it tells me, Sharie, and this is really important, the way that I send out this diagnostic tool and receive the information, I often get multiple viewpoints. And so it's not just one person in the company that fills it out. The owner of the company fills it out. Any of the people on their leadership team fill it out. And that's really important for me because I get to understand the organization from a number of different viewpoints, because not everybody thinks about it the same way. And I get to see how thorough people are. You know, it's a little bit more interesting to me to kind of see their style, their communication style. The questions are all open-ended, but people still find a way to answer them with like 1 or 2 words. And so it's interesting to me to kind of pick up if they're more of maybe a dominant style, or maybe they're more of a conscientious style, or maybe they're more of a steady style, you know, leaning on those DISC acronym there. But it just tells me so much about the company, about the people and who I'd be working with and their style and their communication style, because I don't want to, you know, use maybe too high of a director or dominant communication style with somebody who's maybe more on the influence or more on the conscientious spectrum, because they want to know every single detail. And that's fine. But there are those other leaders who just want the bullet points. And they're just very much like, bottom line here, Matt, you know, I'll read the whole email later, and they never do, but they just want the bottom line up front. So, you know, I've definitely used that diagnostic tool in a number of different ways. But that's kind of the starting point. I do that as a flat fee. And then for me, it's the collaborative effort into getting into phase 2 or 3 or beyond to kind of say, you know, you said these were your issues. You told me this is what you wanted me to work on. You know, you've brought up some other things along the way. We'll get to that. We got to stay committed to the plan.
I love that. I love that. Even if I want to say borrow, but I really mean steal. Sending this diagnostic out to several people in the company and really understanding their style up front. Love that. That's a great.
Yeah, thanks. You can borrow it. The approach, you can't have the tool, but I'm sure you probably want to ask your own questions anyway. But you know, I think it's just really important to get kind of a holistic view of what's going on in the business. You know, some of the questions touched on things like finance, obviously, you know, if I'm going to come in as maybe a financial professional, CFO type, but it also talks about things like traction, and it talks about things like progress, and it talks about things like efficient meetings, because I think those are also important points to understand how efficient is the business. How efficient are the leaders in delegating? And do they have a strategy that they've ever even worked on? You know, is it what happened to it? Is it in somebody's desk drawer they have to go and dig up? It's just interesting to kind of learn some of those different aspects of the business. So
love that.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, I wanted to wrap up our time today. Just to kind of remind everyone, I'm here with Sharie Flores. She's the owner of MT Strategies, providing HR leadership and talent services to SMBs. She focuses on the professional services and tech industries. She loves to work with companies that are between 8 and 75 employees, has her MBA from the University of Houston, Clear Lake, and just all around a great person to chat with, and extremely knowledgeable in a lot of these different issues and areas we've been talking about. So Sharie, thank you so much for your time. I wanted to give you a chance, if you'd be open to it. Is there any last words or anything you'd want to share with the audience before we kind of part for the day?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the chance to be here. It was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed yourself as well. I just wanted to say, I was listening to your episodes this morning with Courtney Wright, and you guys touched on problems that I would have never thought about. I've never come up in my career, and just love what you're doing. And I think you're being really effective. So just thank you so much for bringing the show. I think it's really important, and I think people will get a lot of value from it. So thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks for the kind words, Sharie. Looking forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Matt.